Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be doing function values, lecture 8. And what you need to know from the last lecture is that we have these things called x values. We have these things called y values. So let's go ahead and talk about them. All right, so the independent variable is the x. So the independent variable is going to be the x. We also call it the input. We also call that the input. So just remember x, that's always going to be the independent variable, and y is always going to be the dependent variable. The dependent variable. And since we called x the input, we're going to call y the output. So whenever you do a function, think of a function as an in and out machine. You're going to have something that's going inside the machine. The machine is called the function f. It's going to have an input, which is the x value. That's going to be the input. And then whatever it spits out, the y value, that's going to be the output. So let's do a quick example of that. Let's say we have a function f of x equals 3x plus 2. 3x plus 2. I want to find f of 4. F of 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let 4 be my input. Notice that x is the independent variable. It's the input. We're going to put that inside the function. So it's kind of like putting 4 inside the function machine. And then we're going to let whatever the variable is just be 4. So when we do f of 4, we're going to keep the function the same, everything about the function the same, except we're going to let our x value be 4. So we're going to replace x with a 4, but otherwise everything else is going to stay the same. We still have that 3 on the outside. We still have a plus 2 on the outside. The only difference between the top and the bottom is we're letting x be 4 and seeing what happens. So we're going to follow the order of operations. We have 3 times 4. That's going to give us 12. We have a plus 2 right beside it. So 12 plus 2 is going to give us 14. And that's going to be our answer. So that's all function values are going to be. You're going to be having an input, which is the x value, the independent variable, and it's going to be spitting out the y value, the output, the dependent variable. So we're going to be putting in the number, and you're going to be getting out a number. Let's look at the next one. Okay, let's look at the problem set. We're going to let f of x be 2x. We're going to let g of x be 2x minus 3. 2x minus 3. And we're going to let h of x be 4x squared minus 3. So these are going to be the 3 functions that we're going to be looking at today. And we're going to be keeping these functions the same. The only thing that's going to change about these is that we're going to have different inputs each time. So the first one we want to find is we want to find f of 3. F of 3. What that means is 3 is going to be our input, and whatever our answer is going to be our output. So we're only going to be looking at the function f for now. F of x equals 2x. So what that means is we're going to be keeping the 2 the same, but we're going to be exchanging the x with a 3. So I'm going to put a 3 where the x used to be. And then 2 times 3 is going to give us 6. And that is our answer. Okay, let's try number 2. I want to find g of 2. So for g of 2, we're looking at function g of x. We're going to keep everything about the function the same. The only difference is we're replacing our x with a 2 because that's what our input is. So we're going to let that x be 2. We still have a 2 on the outside. We still have a minus 3 on the outside. And we're going to be using the order of operations, parentheses, exponents, multiplying and dividing, adding and subtracting. We're going to go in that order until we get to our final answer, which is just going to be a number. Okay? 2 times 2 is going to give us 4. We still have a minus 3 on the outside that we're going to use. And 4 minus 3 is going to give me 1. So that's going to be our answer. Okay, let's do h of 1. Now this time we're using function h of x, which is 4x squared minus 3. So I'm going to keep the 4 the same. I'm going to replace x with a 1. Notice that the x is squared up here. So we're going to keep that exponent as 2. And we're still going to have a minus 3 on the outside. So doing order of operations, we do parentheses first. And then after that, we do exponents. I do see an exponent right here. 1 squared is 1 times 1, and that's just going to be 1. So that's going to be a 1. We still have a 4 on the outside, and we have a negative 3 on the outside. So now let's do multiplying and dividing. 4 times 1, that's going to give me 4. And then we still have the minus 3. 4 minus 3 is going to give us 1. And that's our answer. So all we're doing is we're replacing our variable with a number and seeing what happens. Okay? Let's try 4, 5, and 6. We want to find f of 0, g of negative 1, and we want to find h of negative 2. Now, one thing I did want to say about function notation is whenever we read something out, we're going to say f of whatever number's on the inside. F of 0, g of negative 1, h of negative 2. Notice we're not multiplying 0 by f. 0 is going to be our input inside of the function. So that's the difference between multiplying and evaluating functions. We're not multiplying 0 by f. We're not multiplying negative 1 by g. We're letting negative 1 be our input, and we're trying to figure out what the output is going to be. So, Coach, can you help me with number 4? What am I going to do with this 0?
You're going to replace the x?
I'm going to replace the x with a 0.
0. Yeah.
So then I have 2 times 0. What would that be?
That's going to be 0.
Right. And that's all we have to do. Okay, for the next one, we're going to be using the function g of x. I'm going to be replacing x with a negative 1. And Coach is going to help us out with these.
I have 2 times the negative 1 minus 3. 2 times the negative 1 minus 3. So 2 times the negative 1 is going to be a negative 2.
Right.
Minus 3. So that's going to come out to be a negative 5.
Yep.
Number 6, you got h of a negative 2. You go back and replace the x. So you got 4 negative 2 to the second power minus 3.
So what am I going to do first?
You always do, please excuse my dear, I'm Sally. You're going to do the exponents first. So you're going to do you're gonna do negative 2 times a negative 2, which is gonna be a positive 4.
Right.
So 4 times 4 is gonna be 16. Subtracts 3. So 16 subtract 3, it's gonna come out to be 13.
Right.
And always use your exponents first. Find that value, negative 2 to the second power, which is a positive 4.
Yep.
Keep it in parentheses. And then you always use from left to right, multiply 4 times the positive 4, which is 16. Subtract 3. So 3 take away from 16, you're gonna leave with positive 13.
Good. You've been paying attention. Right?
All my students in first block be paying attention.
That's good. That's all you can ask for, right?
That's correct.
Okay. I'll leave that up there for a little bit so you guys can finish copying that down. And do know that all that we're doing is we're letting x be a number and seeing what happens. That's called evaluating a function or finding function values. We're going to do the last 4 on the problem set, and then I'll open it up to questions from you guys, and then we'll call it a day. All right. We're going to do 7, 8, 9, and 10 from the problem set. And when I was making these up, I wanted to start off with positive numbers and then move on to more complicated things. So I started off with the positive numbers. I went to 0. And then I said, well, hey, what about negative numbers? They come up too. And then I went to fractions and decimals and weird stuff like that. So you're going to be looking at that as well. Okay, let's look at number 7. 7 says find f of 1/2. And just as a reminder, f of x is going to be 2x. 2 times x. G of x is going to be 2x minus 3. And h of x is going to be 4x squared minus 3. 4x squared minus 3. And those are the 3 functions that we're going to be looking at today. Okay, let's try number 7. So number 7 says we're using the function f of x and we're placing in 1/2 for x. So I'm going to have a 2 on the outside and I'm going to replace x with a 1/2, and 2 times 1/2 is going to give us 1. So that's going to be our answer for number 7, 1. Number 8 says g of 1.3. 1.3. So this time we're going to be using g of x and we're going to let our input be 1.3. So what happens is the 2 is going to stay the same. The x is going to be a 1.3. And then we're going to have a minus 3 on the outside. So the first thing we want to do is we want to multiply. 2 times 1.3 is going to give us 2.6. 2.6. And then if we subtract 3 at the end, we're going to get negative 0.4. And that's going to be our answer. Negative 4/10 or negative 2/5. You can also think about it that way. All right, number 9 says h of 0. I want to use h of x, so I'm going to be using this function right here. We have a 4. We're going to let our x be 0. We do need to square that, and we do need to subtract 3 at the end. So I'm going to start off with exponents first. 0 squared, what would that be? That's the same thing as 0 times 0, right? And we both know that that's 0. So I'm going to have 4 times 0 minus 3. So what we did in that step was we squared 0 to get 0. Make sense? Okay, so now let's multiply 4 times 0. Coach, what's 4 times 0?
0.
Right.
Any number times 0 is 0.
Yep. So now we have 0 minus 3. That's going to give us negative 3. And we're done. The last one we're going to do is number 10. 10 is h of 3. See if you can get it before I get it. Once again, I'm letting 3 be my input, and we're trying to figure out what our output is going to be. The output is whatever answer we get at the very end, right? So we're going to be using the function h of x this time. So I'm going to be using that 4x squared minus 3. I'm going to let my x be 3. We need to square that, and we need to subtract 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3 squared, which is 3 times 3. That's 9. So I'm going to have 4 times 9 minus 3. 4 times 9 is 36. And then 36 minus 3 is going to give me 33. And I'm done. So that's function values. You're putting in an input and you're getting out an output. And all a function is it's a relationship between an input and an output. So what you can do with these numbers is you can actually make these into ordered pairs. We always put our x first and we always put our y second. So for number 10, we let our input be 3. That's going to be our x value. So in place of x, I'm going to put a 3, and our output is 33. So we get the point 3 comma 33. Let's see what that looks like when we graph it. I'm going to graph the function h of x on Desmos, and we'll see what that looks like. So we're going to have h of x is equal to 4x squared minus 3. And we should have the point that we found in the problem on the graph. So what you'll see here is you'll see this black U shape. That's called a parabola. Whenever you have a U shape, you're going to have that x squared. So your highest exponent is always going to be 2. Now the point that we figured out was 3 comma 33. So let's graph that as well. We're going to graph the point 3 comma 33. And it's going to be a red point. So if we were to scroll out, keep on scrolling, there it is. The point is actually going to be on the graph. So that's one way you can check your answer. You can graph the function and then see if the point is actually on the graph. And it should be if you did it right. Okay, so that's 7 through 10, the problem set. Now you're going to be doing the classwork today, which is going to be 12 questions, but 4 of them have already been done for you. So let's talk about what's going to be due on Sunday. Okay, on Sunday, you're going to have 2 assignments that are going to be due. The first one is going to be the function values, the ones that we talked about today. The function values classwork. We did that today. And on Wednesday, we're going to talk about the function test. So that'll be your second test grade, the function test. It'll have about 20 questions. So we'll talk about that on Wednesday, and I'll do a couple problems of those with you guys, and we'll get you ready for it. Okay, so class dismissed. If you have any questions about today's lecture or any questions about the classwork, do feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat box, and I will get to those very soon. You guys have a good day. I will see you on Wednesday. Have a very mathematical day.